All right. And good morning here. This is Matt Odom again, and we are here for another lecture. And we hope that you all took away some good nuggets from the first video. We're going to continue discussing via the text and examples. This week, I've got another example of a project that I'm actually working on, and we're going to actually discuss a couple of personal projects. Be ready to be flexible. This is something that stood out to me in reading the text. And so I wanted to talk about this because this is a critical part of your journey as a photographer, especially a documentary photographer. Extremely important if you're going to be a reportage photography. For those who don't know, reportage is usually deals with hard news. You tend to see a lot of these guys doing running around with entourages with presidents and diplomatic figures and political figures and news, things of that magnitude. And then you have another side of reportage that is usually covering events, protests, uprisings, etc. So, but you always have to be ready to be flexible. This is something that I've learned over the last 5 years. And this is something that I can tell you that you will encounter this. If there's one thing you can that I can tell you from being a photographer, is that you will either A, be in the right place at the wrong time, or B, you will be in the wrong place at the right time. It's going to be one of those two particular ways. And a lot of times that's how a lot of people end up making it in this industry. I had a good friend who she went to cover the protest last year in Atlanta. A day later, she's on the front page of Time magazine. So, front page of Time website, excuse me. So let's get right down to business here. In the text, it says that once I was getting ready to shoot a story in Bombay, I had already shot similar stories in several big cities around the globe, and as usual, all of my pre-production work was focused on finding those special individuals who have innovative vision and good influence on their community. I had already found a number of passionate, enthusiastic people responsible for incredibly creative and effective projects. One of them created an indigenous network to recycle trash. Another founded an organization that offered surgical services to poor people at no cost, and another another one was defending the mangrove forest from destruction. Allergies adding up this morning. 2 days before flying to India, the editor told me that she had changed her mind. This is something, I'm gonna put a preface here. This is something that's common. A lot of times you get assignments. It happened to me this week. I was working on one assignment. I ended up getting the email to go shoot something else. I had to go shoot that. So it always tends to change a lot, because a lot of times in the industry, a photo editor may have a idea for something, and then it could just be something as simple as they're talking over lunch and someone says, hey, well, have you thought about doing it from this way? And now it changes the entire story. And then you go from one story, then it changes it to something else, and then you have to make the adjustment. So that kind of ties into what he's saying here with be ready to be flexible. All right, let's carry on. She'd rather have a story on the wealthy people and their crazy parties. Despite the sudden change in topic, I wasn't totally unprepared, of course. I had to reorganize, contact more people and research different information. But everything went pretty smooth, and I was actually able to shoot both stories and managed to sell the original one to a different magazine when I got back from my trip. When you are used to last minute changes and unforeseen events, problems can turn into opportunity, well within certain limits. Well, I want to discuss this part here where he talks about able to sell the original to a different story. Now, last week we discussed the story I did on John Jackson down at Comfort Farms. I actually shot an assignment for another person and actually sent the photo editor a different portion of the story and asked, could we shoot it from a different angle? A lot of times you're going to find yourself where one person's going to turn something down and say, nope, we don't want to do that. You never throw it away. You never throw it away. You always hold on to it, and then you can pitch that story to someone else. and someone else may take that story and say, you know what, this is a great story. This is something we can use. So don't feel like if you say, hey, I would like to do a story on Johnny cutting grass, but he's had this business for 40 years and he's retiring as a millionaire. And someone says, no, no, we don't want to do that story. We rather do a story on guys who are having trouble with lawn equipment for this particular company, and we want to use Johnny for that. So there's still a story there that can be used. It's just a matter of finding the right person or right entity that wants to use the initial story. So you always want to make sure that you don't just give up if someone doesn't go with what you want to go with. A lot of times people do that, and then what happens is they miss a lot of opportunities to make money on the other side. And also there's a school of thought that a lot of these times you can use these photos as stock images, which is something we'll discuss later in the course. But you can use a lot of work that you do as stock images and save those. And sometimes photo editors pick those up as well. You can make a pretty good a piece of change doing that. So, all right, so let's so I've got to get used to moving around here. We're gonna bounce around. Let's see. We're gonna go to here. Gonna go to my website here. This is actually a personal project that I'm working on, and this is something that I think I stressed it last week, but I really want to push it this week, which is being prepared. Uh, a lot of times, you all are going to have to start doing personal projects. You're going to have to come up with ideas. I can't give you what you're supposed to do for a personal project, but you've got to find something that you find extremely fascinating and that you enjoy and that you're passionate about. And you have to make sure that you can tell that through a series of stories or even just portraits, as I have done with this particular project that I just started. This is I'm doing a project on COVID-19 survivors who have all recovered. And so, of course, I've got a lot of people now considering that. I started this last year, but I've got a lot more people that I'm actually doing. I've actually got one today, as a matter of fact. So what you want to do is you want to be able to find a story of something interesting about something, and just basically tell a story. As you see here, I photographed this gentleman here, and he gives his account on dealing with COVID and battling throughout it. And so I was able to get a simple portrait, and that's all it takes. A lot of times you don't have anything extravagant lighting or anything of that magnitude. You just basically, man, just just photograph who you want, tell a story, give you a reason, and then you move on. This is something that you can do over a year, over 2 years, over 6 months, 3 years, and so on. This isn't something that a lot of times when people do personal projects, they have a problem stopping and starting. And so what you have to realize is that once you've accomplished your goal of it, then you move on to the next personal project. Now, here's a project that I worked on some years ago that actually led to more work. As a matter of fact, I'll actually give you an idea of where this led. So, let me see if it's on here. Let me scroll down right quick. No, it's not in here, but I'll show you what actually happened from this particular project. So this is a project that I started. I'm actually restarting this project, which just goes back to support what I just told you all about. You can start and stop whenever you want to. This is a personal project that I love doing. I love doing barbecue joints. I found a couple more barbecue joints. These kind of barbecue joints are drying up and down in Macon for some strange reason. But I found a couple of outlying areas, a couple of spots in Atlanta Metro that I'm going to start going to. And if you guys know of any good barbecue joints that are really, really cool, you can email me and let me know, and I will put them on the list to visit. But this is just some local stuff I did down in Macon. And I just spent a day going to the barbecue joints. I would provide, once I was finished, I provide the people who allowed me to photograph the establishment with photos so that they had those. And we were able to photograph the, different facilities and joints and get the ambiance and just, just good old fashioned food. This is probably one of my favorite. Oh, there it is. One of my favorite things to do. Now we've got here was a plate. Now I want you to keep this particular photo in mind here. I think I've still got it in here if I'm not mistaken. But we were able to take that particular project. These photos were all used in an issue of Macon magazine, and this was used as the cover. If I can find it, let's see if I can find that cover. Let's see if it's in here. It may be in there, it may not, but that was actually used as a cover some years ago. Let's see, just so that you all can see. I don't think it's in here. Nah, I don't think it's in here. Nah, it's not in here. But that's actually a cover for Making Magazine uh, right here. And so, a lot of times you can shoot this kind of work and end up getting paid for it. And so, a lot of times people don't even take this stuff into thought. That you can actually find something to do and make money from doing it long term, even if you do it, shoot it yourself initially for free. This again was a project that I worked on that I showed you all last time. Was personal work that I was published, and we went over that. And so once again, I just want you all to see that you can find stuff to do. Like, I'm a big boxing aficionado. I love boxing, and so there's a local gym that I went to and just documented a tournament and was able to do it in a series of photos. This has turned out to be one of people's favorite photos, and you just have to find something to do and tell stories doing it. I mean, that's going to be your foray into breaking into this industry, unless you just run into some story that just you're in the right place at the right time. You get a guy coming out of a bank, and you just happen to take the photo. Those are what I call one-offs, and those things happen, but they don't happen a lot. I always use the analogy. You'll hear me use this analogy a lot in the photography courses. Is how many people that you went to high school that graduated from Harvard, or you graduate or going to Harvard. It's usually probably 0.1%. And it's the same thing with photography. A lot of times those huge breaks like that are usually like 1% of the industry. You don't see that all the time. So what I want people to start doing is getting into the habit, into facilitating stories that they can use uh, to do for themselves. So I've actually started a personal project that I want to share with you all. Let's see if I can find it here. We're going to stop here. I got to find it. We're going to find this particular story here. All right, let's go back to Zoom, share screen, and boom. All right, here we go. All right, so I've actually started working on a project. I'm going to show you pieces of it. I'm not going to reveal all of it to y'all. I'm just going to show y'all. I actually went with a friend of mine that's the actual editor, and I pitched a story. Was trying to find connects. I called around, called and called. That's another thing you're going to have to learn how to do too, is learn how to cold call, ask questions, ask people to refer you to people. And so ended up finally getting the lead on a particular topic that I wanted to do. And so I spent the entire last Saturday going out photographing this particular place, and just wanted to get the ambiance. This is just all from my cell phone. I just wanted to see what was there before I started making my move. And so we were able, as you can see, people here photographing and stuff. And so I was able to kind of get a lead on everything and get exactly what I wanted to do. And this is the owner of the facility, and spoke with him and was able to get with him on what I wanted to do, and he agreed to it. And so I've got a personal project that I'm actually starting, hopefully in the next 3 or 4 weeks. And so this is probably going to be a year-long project. He's part of the particular project that I'm working on. So it's going to take about a good, I'd say 6 months to a year on this particular project that I'm working on. And so we'll see how that goes. But the reason I showed you all this, let me see if I think this is one. No, that's for something else. The reason I showed you all this was I wanted you all to see that you're going to have to go out and make. A lot of people have trouble with reaching out to locals, or just, because you're inverted. And I'm kind of both introvert, extrovert. But you're going to have to start learning how to make connections with individuals to get these personal projects. Most people are flexible and will allow you to photograph things, but you have to be personable, and you have to be able to come to them and say, hey, look, my name is John B. Jones. I am with Georgia Piedmont Technical College, and I am a photography student, and I'm working on a project for school, and I need to be able to do X, Y, Z. I would like to be able to tell you this story through photos. Would you allow me to do da 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 da, and so on? Get used to rehearsing that, and getting used to get used to telling that spiel to everybody, and you'll get used to talking to people But in order to be successful in this uh, course, and as a photographer, documentary photographer, you're going to have to learn how to be able to talk to people, and you're going to have to learn how to be able to make connections. It's just like the gentleman said in the text. He'd already, he was able to pivot because he'd already made connections already on the ground. And so that's an important part of what you all need to be able to do, which goes right into online networking and surfing for contacts. You've got to be able to start looking for contacts. A lot of times you can find them through LinkedIn. You can find them through telephone, man. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I call a business. I've got a project that I'll share. I'm actually photographing tomorrow that I'll share with you all for next week. And it's a very cool project. And it's just some personal work. I'm excited. I'm not going to spoil it, because you're going to see it next week. But so I want you all to just get in the habit of making phone calls. Check your local news. I got a friend of mine that works at Channel 13 WMAZ that gave me the tip on this and said, "Hey, I think this is something that you may like to photograph." When I got the spill on it, I was like, "Oh, absolutely, let's make this happen." Lo and behold, I reached out to the guy on Facebook. He responded back, said he was cool with me coming to take the photos, and we've got a personal project. Now we've got a personal project. Most photo editors, most art directors are going to want to see personal work. There's not going to be any client that you're going to run into outside of maybe a local mom and pop those they typically don't care. But any high-paying job or any reputable news outlet will look to see your personal work. They're going to want to see what you do when you're not assigned any work. And so if you're going to be a photographer that think you that you're going to be able to just sit down and wait for someone to hand you assignments and then you go to work, that's not the way this industry works. You're going to have to constantly create your own work and find things to do. Okay. All right. So some of this is outdated because I actually, for me, Light Stalkers used to be a really, really huge uh, site, but some of this stuff is a little outdated here. Google Plus is no longer around. So what I'll tell you to do is I would probably tell you to use LinkedIn, your local telephone company. I mean, it's telephone company. Lord have mercy. Telephone book, if you still can get those, or just plain old Google searching. Google searching, and if you got like time, especially for my students who are younger, I'd say those who are in their 18 to 24 range and 23, and you're not doing much anything, you got a lot of free time. Hey man, plan some road trips and start putting stuff in your book. Start road trips, man, are one of the best ways to get a lot of good images to go in a portfolio. Okay. All right. So let's take a look here. And I want you all to also notice too, I'm going to be jumping around a lot in text. So don't think that you're missing anything if I move around. It's just that I kind of read ahead a little bit. And so some stuff is I kind of want to tackle at the end of the semester. And then there's certain things I want to tackle right now because it's more prevalent to deal with early on as opposed to later on. Stuff like, shooting repertoire work in RAW. All right. So a lot of times, if you're shooting for yourself, I want everybody to understand this. If you're shooting for yourself, and this is where I'll give you a little bit of technical help here. If you're shooting it automatic on your camera, you need to stop doing that because it's going to affect the way that you're able to create your style. But one of the things that's going to separate you from someone else is your particular style. I always tell people, don't aim to shoot like someone, aim to tell a story like them. So if you have a particular photographer that you like to follow, don't learn how to shoot so that you can shoot their style. Shoot the way that they tell the story. And then that will allow you to be able to create your own style. A lot of times I shoot in RAW. Matter of fact, most of the times, I'd say 98.5% of the time I shoot in RAW. Very, very rare do I shoot in JPEG, unless the client specifically asks for it. But most times I shoot in RAW just because of the fact that you're able to kind of change everything around and able to work within that scope. And it allows you to become more flexible too as a photographer. You create your own style. We're going to do a little bit more hopping around here in this course. I'm going to stop sharing the screen right quick. I want to make some adjustments here. I want to go over to another website. Just bear with me here. Um, let me go. Another spot where you're able to find some good networking is going to be a lot of message boards. If I could see if this is still around for Canon users, let's see. Let's see if this site is still around. Canon on the web. No, it's for photography on the web. It's been years since I've been. I have to find this website. There's a website. It's been so. Oh, there we go. 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 All right. Let me open up the screen share again. All right. Here we go. All right. So, for Canon, well, it's changed. It's been, like I said, it's been years since I've been on this particular website, but it's called Photography on the Net. This is probably the most important website that I joined when I first started doing photography. And I know people are probably going to say, well, why would you say that? And I'll say, because there's a lot of discussion about the industry. There's a lot of discussion about trends. There's a lot of discussion about what people do as photographers. So you see, we've got a whole gamut of where people come in, they share their particular photos. Let's go to, we'll just go to people. So a lot of times people post different things, like you've got the most important person you photograph. Let's see. I think somebody said, yeah. So people just kind of photograph their photos, and you're able to kind of take a look. They even give you the settings so that you're able to kind of understand what they were doing at that particular time, what kind of camera, and you're just able to just kind of get an idea of just how the industry works, different things, networking tools. Here we go. Post your family photojournalism, and just different photos from around the house, you know. And this is actually a primer for some of you all who are working on some of these assignments. This is a great example. I will leave a link in the announcement section, well, in the course section. So you'll see this by the time this video goes up. You'll see it. So that way you can visit this website. And like I said, you can get lost in it. And as you see here, these are just simple documentary shots of just probably his kids at the house. And you're able to tell a story, you know. And I'm not sure when this photo was taken. Let's see. This is March 2021. We don't know if it's raining outside. We don't know if it's snowing. We don't know what's going on. But we know one thing, that the kids are at home and they wish they could go outside. So these are opportunities for great photos to for individuals to just go out and, you know, just go through and take a look. So use your resources that are around you to help what I call put into your tool set and tell stories. Also, we're gonna have some special guests coming up, and we may have one next week. I'm working on that, so we may have him next week. And so we're gonna stop the screen share here, and I'm gonna go back. See if I can find some of let's find some work here. We'll find some of his work so that you all see who it is. And some of you all are going to be like, wow, really? And I was like, yep. So we're going to introduce this gentleman here next week. It's going to be probably the first person that we bring into to fruition. Is going to be Disto Moy, who is actually my assistant. Disto Moy is my assistant. He's been my assistant for the last 3 years, and we work together all the time. Somebody in here is going to have the pleasure of being able to work with him as an intern this year. But he is probably one of the best portrait photographers in the state. But he has a lot of he tells stories very simple. It's a very simple setup. You see here, it's one light, you know, one light, simple setup, and he just takes a lot of different portraits of people, and he tells really cool stories. He visits everybody. He's a well-known, he's all over the place. He does different things. And so, I mean, it's just like if you're able to just be, like I told y'all, just walk up and start asking people about different things, you can kind of get great portraits and tell stories and documents. So we'll talk with him, and we'll get a chance to discuss his his method to discuss, to going out and getting his photos. He had a art gallery that just opened recently. Take a walk in my shoes. And if you don't mind driving down to Macon, I would suggest that you come down and take a look at it. It's a great it's a great uh, exhibit. What he did was he created a personal project that actually ended up turning around and getting paid for it. Once again, where I told you, if you turn your own work into stuff, you can actually get paid for it. And he basically discussed just basically photographed people, and then he photographed them in their shoes. So you see her shoes are right there, and that's the portrait of her. So it's like, take a walk in my shoes. And so they were able to tell a story about their life and what they had been through and things of that magnitude. So once again, as I said, in this industry, you're gonna have to always be prepared. You're gonna have to always be ready to make a move. You're gonna have to always be able to be working on something in order to be successful. If you don't do that, then you're probably going to find yourself in a situation where you're going to be stagnant, and then that's when you tend to flail as a photographer, and you don't want that. You always want to have something going on. You want to find something to do. You want to always make something happen, no matter how busy you get. That was one of the things that I learned that I had to get back into the habit of after last year during the pandemic, because it took about three months there where I was it was just sitting at home and I wasn't shooting anything. So therefore I had to get those gears back to rolling. And now I'm back to where I was back in 2019 before the pandemic hit. I've got a set of personal projects I'm working on, and I've got my other work that I'm working on as well. And so you've got to be able to do that. And Disto, who is basically went commercial within the last couple of years, has now found the niche of learning how to create personal work and now create work for himself as well. So, and we'll discuss this. So hopefully next week we'll have him on, and that'll be pretty much the lecture for next week, is discussing the documentary photography. And we've got a couple of other guests that are going to be lined up. So the text is still going to be used here and there, but what we're going to start doing is we're going to start tying that text into real world application so that you all will be able to see it. So I'm going to be breaking it on. So photographers, that's going to be discussing their methodology for what they do. So, all right. Well, with that, I think that is it for this week. This is the week's lecture. Once again, if you have any issues in class, make sure you email me. If you are having any trouble getting your projects off the ground, please shoot me an email. I will reach out to you and we can discuss it. We got quite a while before those are due. I think we got 1, 2, maybe 2, 3 weeks or something like that. So we've got time to work on those. If you're having any trouble getting those off the ground, let me know. I've got a couple of people that would not mind being photographed. So if you need someone to know, to photograph, let me know. What I also want people to start doing is to every day, you need to create a list of things that you want to photograph that you can that's easily accessible to you, and start trying to photograph them. Every day you should be trying to find something to photograph, or at least once or twice a week you should be photographing something, trying to tell the story. Get in the habit of going to local businesses. This is why I created the assignment. I want you all to get used to, you've got a lot of stories that's around you all, and you've got to start reaching out and fleshing out those stories. So make sure that you do that. As a matter of fact, let me pull up my personal email here. I'm going to show y'all something, because I'm going to show you again an example of how to get a story pitch. All right, let me see here. Let me see here. Now, all right, so this is one of the few times I'll do this here. Let me show you an actual email. All right, so we see here, it says, and you can kind of look right down here. Coach Cedric Risper celebrates 20 years of coaching at Westside High School. He was also a member of the Macon Knights Arena Football. He took over the program from legendary head coach Robert Davis, who recently passed away last year. The editor, who is Renee, she says, "Thank you." So I circled back around, and so I said the same story. That same story pitch has an update. See attached photo, and I think the incoming director will be the first woman high school athletic director in Macon. And then we had a follow-up. Well, I confirmed with Stephanie at the Board of Education that she is indeed the first female athletic director. How about this story for August or October? We would need to get the timing right for when kids are back in school. So then the magazine editor says yes, and then now we see the story is starting to get fleshed out. Once again, this is why I told you all. I said if you have to start learning how to pitch stories in order to create work for yourselves, if you don't do that, then you're going to find yourself in a situation where you're just going to be sitting around waiting on people to bring work to you. And that's not the way you want to be. You want to learn how to pitch stories to local magazines, local newspapers. Learn how to pitch stories. All right? Because that's going to be the key in becoming a good documentary photographer, is learning how to pitch stories, learning how to do stuff, create your own work. Once you learn how to do that, you're going to be successful, okay? All right, well, with that, I hope everyone was able to enjoy this week's lecture. And once again, next week, we're going to try to have D-Stow Moore, and I'll let him explain what that DSTO stands for. And we're going to try to have him on next week, and hopefully you'll be able to take something from that discussion. All right, well, with that, we are out. Have a great weekend.